This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, Lions losing 31-24, back to reality for them. We'll break that one down for you. We'll also break down the health of your quarterback, Matthew Stafford. Also, going with a little bit of a change of pace this week. We're going to talk some MSU hoops with a big win over Oakland on Sunday. Going to be talking about some of the players to watch out for once they start Big Ten play next week against Northwestern. And joining us later is a special guest, probably the best punter in Lions history, Jim Arnold. He'll be joining us to talk about his career and some things that he did after his career as well. So it should be a great episode. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody enjoyed their weekend. The weeks are just ticking down to Christmas. I'm really excited for it. Finishing up my final exams this week here at John Carroll, but always making sure that I have some time for open mic night. So it's exciting. And, well, the biggest news of the weekend, Lions losing 31-24 to the Packers. You know, I'm going to be honest here. I didn't think it was that bad of a game on the Lions side, especially offensively. Defensively, that's a whole nother story because the defense was not getting any stops. I mean, you look at the third quarter. I think they said Green Bay had the ball for 14 minutes, 13, 14, something like that. Lions had it for a minute, minute and a half. I mean, that's unacceptable. Every time the Packers had a third down, the Lions had no answer. And that went for the run and the pass. I mean, you look at the play at the end of the game. Third down, big third down. And Lions need the ball back to give them a chance to win the game. And all Rodgers does is he calls a play-action pass, and he dumps it off to his tight end, Robert Tonyan, and he gets the easy first down to win the game. I mean, just plays like that, that's the stuff that makes me upset as a Lions fan, that the Lions just cannot find a way to come out on top in some games. You know, we were all really happy last week after that Bears win, and so was I. I thought, you know, maybe this will give us some sort of spark or something like that, but offensively, I thought the Lions did all right. You know, there were some plays where Stafford took some sacks, and, you know, Matt Nelson, third stringer, starting at right tackle, Ode Abushi. I mean, those guys did not play well on the offensive line. And especially in some situations where, you know, the Lions and Stafford, they're trying to drive down the field to kick field goals, especially at the end of the half, but then the offensive line gives up 2 sacks in a row. I mean, you're not going to be winning ball games if the offensive line is going to be playing like that. From a coaching perspective, I mean, we've seen worse. I think that 2-minute drill near the end of the half, I think that was managed really well, especially when they called the timeouts when necessary. Packers couldn't get it done. Gave Stafford a chance with like a minute 40 left or something like that. But the offensive line just let them down. You know, the Lions were in field goal range, and then they took those sacks. Very unfortunate there, but I mean, you know, basically the season's over at this point. I mean, even a few weeks ago, there was really no chance at the playoffs. I just thought maybe that win would give us a little bit of a spark at the end of the season. Because as you know, if you've listened to this podcast, I'm very anti-tanking. You know, I don't think that the Lions should just say, you know what, we're going to lose the rest of our games because we want a better draft spot. I think these guys come out there and they want to win. It's going to be pretty hard in the next few weeks because they got the Titans on Sunday, then a little Saturday game against the Bucs and Tom Brady coming to Ford Field, and then they close it out with the Vikings at home. Defense will have to have some improvement. That's more for the offseason and whoever the new general manager and head coach is. But we're going to have to see on that end because that defense will not get the job done, especially if you keep allowing those very time-consuming drives, giving your offense very little opportunity in the second half. I mean, that's not how you're going to win in the National Football League. So addressing that defense in the offseason is definitely a priority if you're the new general manager and head coach. So speaking of Matthew Stafford, he suffered a severe rib injury. At least it looked like it on TV when he attempted to slide. I believe he was within 5 yards of the goal line. Lions scored on the drive. But as he was sliding, it seemed like he was sandwiched by a couple of defensive linemen that tried to tackle him. In my opinion, that should have been a penalty because it was obvious that he was trying to slide. And I don't know. Maybe from the ref's point of view, it was different, but at least from a fan's perspective, it looked like a penalty. But regardless, Stafford is hurt. There's a lot of doubt up in the air if he'll even play again this season. Chase Daniel got the reps at the end of the game. And if that's happening, probably kiss your season goodbye, Lions. Because the Lions are very, very unsuccessful in games that Matthew Stafford does not play in. I mean, look at last year. That was a disaster. To my recollection, since 2011, when Stafford played his first full healthy season, the backup quarterback has not gotten a single win in any start. Not a single win. If it gets to the point where Chase Daniel has to start the next 3 games, I would assume we're going to get a heavy dosage of DeAndre Swift, Kerryon, some of the other younger guys to see if they can play maybe next season. This is a little bit maybe of an audition to see if they want to stick on the team for next season to whoever's going to be the next general manager and head coach. Literally, as we speak, I get a text from my friend, from Ian Rappaport, a report that says Matthew Stafford's status is in doubt for Sunday against the Titans, but he has not been ruled out yet. Stafford is tough, and he has played through a lot, but he was in a ton of pain last night after his rib injury. Chase Daniel would step in, yes. So literally as we speak, we get a little update about that. We kind of knew from the beginning, especially after the game, Dave Burkett, among others, were reporting about it, how it just was very severe, and Stafford with a lot of pain in the morning. We'll have to see. And you saw it on TV, just his facial expressions. He was holding his ribs. And, I remember thinking after he got hit, I said, get up, Stafford. You're tough. He's tough. And then I saw his reaction, and I thought, that's not the Stafford I usually see when it comes to, him playing with injuries. Something is obviously wrong. And sure enough, they pulled him out of the game, and they put Chase Daniel in. But if the Lions want to have any hope of winning any games the next 3 weeks, they have to have Stafford, because I don't really have much hope if Chase Daniel plays. So I guess we'll have to see. And also, Stafford, there's really nothing to play for. And I know, he's like Brett Favre out there when it comes to wanting to play. He's the Iron Man for the Lions. Chase Daniel talked about in his press conference after the game how he's so competitive out there and he wants to be in. He doesn't care if it's a meaningless game. He wants to go out there and play. But the Lions, they may think differently, especially if they want to save their franchise quarterback. This could affect the decision for next year if they want to keep Stafford or if they want to part ways. There's a lot of talk about that right now. If this was perhaps the last time Stafford will ever be in the Honolulu blue and silver, that, in my opinion, we'll have to discuss in the offseason because it's too hard to tell right now. I know a lot of people like it for the story, but it's going to really depend on who the general manager and the head coach is. It's going to be their decision ultimately. And then they could work out an agreement with Stafford if he wants to leave as well. But we'll get into that more in the offseason. So Lions back at it on Sunday in Nashville as they play the Titans. Going to be tough. Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in the NFL. Lions, one of the worst teams in the NFL in stopping the run. So I guess we will have to see. One last thing before we get to our interview with Jim Arnold. Michigan State basketball 5-0. Big win over Oakland, 109-91. Very high-scoring game. And I know some people out there might say, well, they gave up 91 points to Oakland. I'll tell you this, folks. Oakland, Michigan State have a little bit of a rivalry. That game is always a tough game, kind of high-scoring each time as well. I'm not surprised. As long as Michigan State gets that win, I'm fine. But as I've mentioned to you listeners before, if you listen to this podcast, I did go to high school with Cassius Winston. I actually got his first bucket of his NBA career with the Wizards. Really happy for him on Sunday. And I really followed his career at Michigan State. And I've been a Michigan State basketball fan for a long time now. I know Michigan State lost Cassius and they lost Xavier Tillman. Huge losses. But I'm going to be honest with you, this team looks like they didn't rebuild, they reloaded. A lot of experience coming back from Michigan State. You have guys like Rocket Watts. You have Aaron Henry, Gabe Brown. Even a guy like Joey Hauser, who transferred from Marquette after his freshman season, had to sit out last year because of the transfer rule. I was a little bit worried about him at first in the season because I thought, well, he hasn't played basketball in a year, so how is he going to handle the adjustment? And he just fit in like a glove. I mean, he knew these guys really, really well when he was training with them. He was still practicing, so he was still developing that chemistry. Really happy for Joey Hauser. He actually leads the team in points per game right now with just over 13. Also averaging 10 rebounds a game, so a double-double. Really, really nice there. That kind of replaces the production that Tillman had on the glass and some points as well for MSU. And Rocket Watts just really, really coming into his own, averaging just under 13 points a game. And Aaron Henry, kind of like the Swiss Army knife of this Michigan State basketball team, he also averages 12 points, getting 6 rebounds and 5 assists. I mean, he is the X factor for this team. However Aaron Henry plays is how the rest of the team will play, in my opinion. Gabe Brown, a solid 20 points against Oakland. Another player to watch out for. And how can I forget Josh Langford, who hasn't played basketball in 2 years? He's been hurt. He was part of that high school class of 2016 with Nick Ward, Cassius, and Miles Bridges. He's getting some valuable minutes as a great leader for this team. And then Foster Lawyer, how could we forget about him? The backup to Cassius last season. Obviously never going to be like Cassius, but is contributing in some other ways, trying to fill that void that Cassius left at point guard. You know what makes this team really special in my eyes? And Izzo even said it. He said this could be one of the best defensive teams that I've ever had. And that's saying a lot, especially from all the great teams that Izzo has coached over the years. That's an honor. And from the 5 games that I've watched this season, I've seen it. I've seen great defense, especially against Duke. I mean, they walked into Cameron Indoor. And I know it's not the same atmosphere because the fans aren't there, but they took control of that Duke game. I know early it was a little rough, but in the late first half, early second half, they really, really started to take control. And I thought, this is a different MSU team. They've never won at Cameron before, ever. This even goes back before Tom Izzo. It was incredible to see that dominating performance against Duke a couple weeks ago, and I was really bummed that game against Virginia got canceled because that would have not only been a great story with Sam Hauser, Joey Hauser's brother, who they played with each other at Marquette a couple of seasons ago, but that's another good team. Tony Bennett's great defensive unit, Tom Izzo with his great defensive unit that he has this season, along with some scoring from multiple different players that have been real contributors this season. This is a Michigan State team that I think will get better and better as the season rolls around. Conference play starting against Northwestern on Sunday. This is just such a deep Michigan State team. A lot of guys coming back from last year. And also some of the freshmen that they have, especially Maddie Sissoko. I know he hasn't played a lot in the first 5 games, but he is a guy that I think will develop as the season rolls around, and he could just add to more depth to this MSU team. And Michigan State could be making some noise down the line. I mean, I know there's a lot of good teams in the Big Ten this year. You got Iowa, you got Illinois. I mean, Michigan, they're working their way back in the top 25. Ohio State even. You know what Michigan State has done in the last few seasons? Even with all these good Big Ten teams, they've taken care of business. And I expect Michigan State to do the same thing this season as they start Big Ten play. I think this is a very determined bunch, and I think they have a little sour taste in their mouth, especially when their season came to a grinding halt last season because, everything was canceled. This is a team that I think legitimately thought that they could win the national championship last season, and I did too. And they lost 2 key pieces in Tillman and Cassius Winston, but they're back, and a lot of the guys are committed, and they definitely know their goal of winning that Big Ten championship and then ultimately winning the national championship, going back to a Final Four, something that is very, very important to this Michigan State basketball program. So I expect a really, really good season and a lot of great things to come for this Spartan basketball team.
And joining us now here on Open Mic Night is one of the best punters in Detroit Lions history, Jim Arnold. Played 12 seasons in the NFL, played 8 for the Lions, also a 2-time All-Pro, and the winner of the Golden Toe Award as the NFL's best punter in 1987. Jim, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Noah.
I want to start things off with your early life. You were a native of Dalton, Georgia, just outside of Chattanooga, just south there on 75, the carpet capital of the South. So how did you
actually of the world? No, Dalton produces enough carpet per year to put a 7-lane highway around the equator.
Wow. That's impressive, actually. So how did you start playing football down there in Dalton?
Just as a kid, I was involved in sports growing up, and then you get to an organized level of sports once you get into school and all that. I mean, I played rec ball. I never did play basketball as a kid, but when I got into organized sports, school sponsored, junior high and high school and up, I played football, basketball, baseball, did some track events, and tennis.
Wow, awesome. And also another thing, too, so you played football at Dalton High School, obviously, and something interesting that I read, too, one of the better programs in the state, the alumni wear red suit coats on the sidelines. That seems like a really interesting tradition. Have you been back and, have you worn your red suit?
I have not worn a red jacket in a long, long time, but when I was in school, you had a red blazer that you wore every Friday on game day. And you were serious about the game. There wasn't any joking around. If coaches caught you joking around, you'd be in a little trouble.
You went on to play at the University of Vanderbilt, and your freshman year, it was only 1 win, but then by the time you got to your senior year, 8 wins. You were the only 4-time all-conference player in program history. Just talk about that transformation of being from 1 win to 8 wins and, in a tough SEC conference, and what was that like?
That first year was very difficult. We came in, and all of the guys that had came in my recruiting class all came from winning programs. So it didn't sit well with us. Now, we had some upperclassmen as we came in who had been there, and it just seemed to us as we started seeing things going in the games, and some of us were playing, some of them were not at the time, and we'd get behind in a game, and it just seemed like once we were behind, that was it. And so the guys that were part of that freshman class just kept working and hanging together and wanted to make sure we changed things as we went. We had a couple of, I think, key additions in the coaching staff. We had Watson Brown, who came to us as our offensive coordinator. I think that helped our offense tremendously. We had Doc Crease as our weight coach, strength and conditioning coach. That really, really helped. I also think Doc was a great motivator. So you take those two right there. I think that was a recipe for our success, along with the drive of those players. We were trying to get better as we grew into upperclassmen. So that was really the success, and we just kind of hung with it and kept going.
You were drafted after your days at Vanderbilt, drafted in the 5th round in 1983 by the Kansas City Chiefs. Even back then, with a lot more rounds in the NFL draft, 5th round is pretty high, especially for a punter or a kicker. So talk about that process and your reaction to getting drafted that high.
That year, Reggie Roby and I, and Reggie's since left us, but Reggie was a great punter, went to school at Iowa, and Reggie and I were both, we were projected kind of 1 and 2 as the punters coming out that year. What we'd heard is that we could have gone as high as the 2nd round, which didn't end up happening. I think I went 5th and Reggie went 6th as far as rounds are concerned, but ended up totally different than what everything I looked at my senior year in college as to who I thought might need, a good punter. So anyway, Kansas City comes calling in the 5th round, and of course you're ready to go play pro ball, or you want to. You're like, yes, I'll go. I'm here. Let's go.
After you were done in Kansas City, you were released, but then a couple weeks later picked up by the Lions in 1986. Resurrected your career a little bit, making the All-Pro twice. So what was your reaction when you found out that you were coming to Detroit?
Well, I was very positive. One, Detroit was one of 5 teams that I worked out for in 86 before they made the call to bring me to Detroit. And coincidentally, I got cut the following year as well. But came up to Detroit, played 7 games. Of the 7 games, I think I was a few kicks short of qualifying for league statistics. Had I qualified, I would have qualified very well, and I would have done, I think I'd have been in the top 5 in the NFL and top 2 in the NFC. So I thought that was pretty good. Here's a great place. I'm kicking indoors. Let's really put in the work in the off season. Not that I hadn't done it before, but really work harder to see if we can improve upon that and come into the following year. Well, I come in the following year and I get cut after the final preseason game, and I got called at halftime and went back up to Detroit. So did that, and that was the year that I made in '87. Made my first Pro Bowl. But I really like Detroit. I mean, a lot of people bash the city and in the area, and I don't. I like Detroit. I had a great time there. I made a lot of good friends there, and I enjoyed it. The Ford family certainly was very good to me, and having the success on the field, I felt like when I came to Detroit, finally, I was under coaches that kind of let you do, not necessarily let you do your thing, but let you prepare for a week or game the way you knew you could to be successful. And as a result, it showed itself on the field. And so therefore it was just like, okay, just make sure you're here, you're ready to go Sunday and don't hurt us. And hopefully I felt like I did that. Hopefully so.
During your time in Detroit, the late 80s, early 90s, one of the better eras in team history, playing with guys like Barry Sanders, Herman Moore, Chris Spielman, and Jason Hansen, who kicked for 20 seasons with the Lions. So what was it like just being around those guys? And, how did that motivate the whole team to just get better, especially in that year, 1991, when they made the NFC Championship?
Well, I think what was great about our teammates then was even when Jason came in, Jason was a very hard worker at his craft and trying to get better and work on things, improve. We all did. And what I loved about our team during that time period was I really felt like everybody held each other accountable. And if you weren't getting it done, it wasn't anybody tiptoeing around it. They would flat out tell you. So there's not only the internal drive of getting better and improving, but it's also your teammates kind of pushing and or pulling you along, depending. And it just created for a great atmosphere there. And it showed itself on the field there because we kind of all came together in that regard of trying to do something better there. We knew we could. If we put our mind to it, we worked hard enough for it. And 91 ended up being a special year.
Last season in the NFL was 1994 for you, and you actually played for the Dolphins. And legendary coach Don Shula, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, Dan Marino. And, you only played one season in there, but it seems like it definitely made an impact on you. Just talk about that 1 year and how amazing it was to be in the presence of such legendary people in NFL history.
Well, you had a lot of there in Miami. Looking back on it, maybe I shouldn't have left Detroit. Honestly, Detroit kind of forced my hand there. I'm not saying that they wouldn't come back, but they were non-responsive to us on calls. And here's Miami, who wanted you to come down. Went to Miami. The courtship was great. The marriage was a little bit different. But here you are playing under Hall of Fame coach Don Shula and Hall of Fame quarterback Dan Marino. We had Hall of Fame defensive line coach Mean Joe Green was there as well. That was a unique team. It's a team that had success, I think, the year before and was moving in a good direction. But there were times over the year before that year and I think the following year. That year, I think they made the playoffs, didn't go very far, but had been really hurt bad in key areas with injuries. Running back, I think tight end. Of course, Dan was hurt a couple of years prior. So I thought that they had a lot of talent there, had an opportunity maybe to go deep into the playoffs, although they did not.
We want to go back to the Lions a little bit. And over the last 30 years or so, guys like you, Jason Hansen, even other special teamers like Mel Gray, Eddie Drummond, then you go down with Matt Prater, Jack Fox, Sam Martin. The Lions have had one of the better special teams units in the league those last 30 years, but it just doesn't seem to be going as well on the offensive and defensive sides. What does it take, to have that consistency in the special teams area?
Well, I think from the standpoint of the special teams performing, it's just execution without error. So many times in the league that here's a kick, a kickoff, a punt, or a punt return, and to get it, it's just about influencing somebody well enough to create a lane for return. And in Mel Gray, one of the greatest I've probably ever seen at hitting that. Now, you've got a lot of good young guys out there today, in particular Mr. Fox, who is certainly Pro Bowl worthy this year. Hopefully he does get the votes to get there because he's a tremendous punter. The Lions have been truly blessed in their time over the last, 40-something years. Eddie Murray for such a long time, who is a very good and consistent kicker. You had Jason Hansen, who took it again for the next 2021. Very good, very consistent kicker. And now you've got Matt Prater, who Matt's kind of came in this league as a great leg. Good guy, had some things he needed to take care of, got him taken care of, and I think has now rediscovered himself in Detroit. He's a tremendous guy, tremendous kicker. And now you had Sam Martin there, and Sam was a really good punter. And then, of course, he left in free agency, and now a young Fox who's in here and just killing it. These kids nowadays are putting up numbers that when I was playing, those were astronomical numbers. You were lucky to get that level. I remember when I played, I think the highest during my career of anybody averaging at the top of the NFL on gross yards punting was somewhere in that 45, maybe 46 category. And then the benchmark for net yard punting was around that 40-yard mark. If you hit that or just under it, because I think in 87 or 88, when they first started taking that as a league statistic, I set the league record for it just under 40 yards. And now guys are routinely over the 40-yard mark as far as net yards on kicking. And that's just, I mean, I talked to guys that played in my era, and that was just unheard of. Now, of course, I do believe, these kids they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and the specialists, I think, have now kind of come in that line as well, because I think these kids have got stronger legs. You're seeing it now from the place kicking standpoint, from the punting standpoint as well.
So speaking of that, you see a lot in the NFL today, there's a separate kicker and a separate punter. You don't see guys really doing both. What's the main difference in terms of maybe the workouts or, how you work out your legs and all that between kicking and punting?
I'm sure that there is more science now out that helps to improve strength. The success I had, there were some things I'm sure that I did that other punters did not. That doesn't make me special. It just made me work hard and have results. So that being said, again, this time and day, I guess the science behind the lifting or strengthening of particular muscles and or muscle groups is different than I think it was during my day. You still were kind of old school, if you will, as far as the weights were concerned. I think kids now are seeing it and doing things differently than what maybe kickers and punters did when I was playing. Didn't make those guys bad guys or bad players at all either. It's just a little bit different in that regard.
Also it seems like today that back in the day, punters and kickers, they were kind of off to the side a little bit more. Nowadays, you see guys like Pat McAfee who are really involved, really boisterous people out on the air. You see Johnny Hecker, guys like that. It seems like they have like a lot of personality. Just talk about, now all of a sudden you're starting to see kickers and punters, they say kickers and punters are people too kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I think back in my day, you did have personalities. Now, did those personalities fit in with your team or not? And I think that's when we got the moniker of the punters and kickers a little bit different. I had a lot of fun. I kind of knew when to have that fun and when not to have that fun in front of my teammates, especially during training camp and stuff. And I think as that relates to me being in my time in Detroit, worked out well because I felt like I got along with all of my teammates very, very well. Didn't really have any issues, and there wasn't any kind of clash of personalities of, he's just kind of weird, he's out there. There were guys in my day that, yes, they were out there, just different cats. But, those were guys who did well, too, statistically in the league. But I think that's now guys kind of are accepted a little bit more in that position. Before, I remember coming in the league and my first year in Kansas City as a rookie, you found out quickly the guys on that team that were old school, that had been in the league for a little while, who just absolutely did not like kickers. And that's fine. I don't care about that, but that you've got a position and I'm feeling it. So I'm going to be here. I'm not going to get in your face about it. I'm not going to do anything about that. I'm just going to go about my business and do my work and hopefully perform well for you on game day.
Now, in your career, do you have a specific play or maybe like a fake punt that you ran that maybe you just remember a lot and really just absolutely love, one of your favorites?
Oh, gosh. When Darryl Rogers was there and I first got up there was the infamous Mayday play. The Mayday play was a fake punt, and it was one at which with your two wide guys, if one became uncovered, then there was a call you made on the field, and then we knew it was going to be a pass. Now, let me preface this by saying I missed that at camp, and I got chewed out about it. And then here we are. I'm in Detroit, my first year. We're playing the Saints. It's late in the game. We're kicking out of our territory, and we have a 3-point lead. And we've had two guys go down to my left, gunner, wide out guy. And if a rookie comes in, and I hear the guy comes off, the defender comes off of him, and somebody is yelling the call, Mayday. And I kind of looked over there at him. He looked back at me, and I thought, we're on the same page. And sure enough, he takes off up the field, and I pulled up and threw the ball. I think I hit him in the back of the helmet. He was a rookie. And, it wasn't his fault. He hadn't been in there and he had not drilled this. So it just was a little bit of a comedy of errors at the time. And the fact that we had two guys that had gone down to the position. But what was even more funnier, I guess, if this thing kind of spun wildly out of control, is after the game, we go in to talk to the press, and Daryl says it's not in the playbook. Daryl Rogers, our special teams coach, leaves the facility. So I've got to go in and talk to the press now. And they're giving it to me. And I said, wait a second, I got yelled at for not seeing this at camp, one. And two, yeah, they ended up winning the ball game because they took over on downs and scored a touchdown and beat us in the game. I said, just tell them I lost the game. It's great if it happens and it's successful. If it's not, you're the GOAT in a bad way, not a good way. So, yeah, but we kind of went, and Daryl would come in and try to talk about that all the next week. And I'm like, Daryl, I don't have a banana. I can't put it in the flux capacitor. Can't go back in time,
So lately, especially around the Lions, there's been some Hall of Fame talk, especially with Calvin Johnson. You yourself were actually nominated in 1999 for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. At the time, there were no punters in. Now Ray Guy was the first punter. Do you think that now, since Ray Guy is in, there's going to be other guys that maybe have a chance at getting into the Hall of Fame that are punters as well?
I do. I do. I think they'll be in there. I tell everybody, you mentioned that I got the Golden Toe Award. That's an award that I'm very proud of. But it's also one that they have a replica in the hall, and they have a plaque up there, and they have everybody's name that's won it. So if I'm never inducted into the Hall of Fame, at least I'm in the Hall of Fame without the official ceremonies. But I was happy to see finally Ray get in there. It's so well deserved, so past its time for him to be in there and to have a punter in the Hall. There are guys that'll be coming up down the road that will go in as well. And you'll have other kickers that go in. I think Calvin he was a Hall of Fame level player, and certainly hope he gets in. Time's going to tell us because we've got until February where they come down to the semifinalists. Yes. And then I think it goes on until maybe draft time. I think they come back and give you the finalists. I forget my time frames, but I think that's pretty close.
So after you were done playing in your career, you actually got into the golf industry. You were an assistant pro at some courses around Nashville. Do you have a favorite place to play, and how much do you enjoy it?
Oh, gosh, I probably got several favorite places to play. There's a lot of great little courses here and around Nashville, both public and private, that are very challenging and fun to play. I worked in the retail side of golf for several years and then went over to the green grass side, which is becoming a assistant professional. And did that for a few years and then just kind of got out of that. So I really, really enjoyed it. I love the game of golf. I don't play it nearly as much as I want anymore. That's due to, one, I've had guys who I used to play with a lot and regularly who left the Nashville area. And then two, my job now keeps me outside, which is great most of the year or most year round. And so work schedule sometimes can interfere with that depending upon the time of year and the hours that I would need to be there. So, but really, really enjoyed that. Met a lot of great people that way. Love it in that regard. But you can't get mad when you're out for 4 hours at a beautiful place, whether you hit the ball good or bad. And that's the thing that most people don't understand is there's only two things that can happen to you when you get over a ball. You'll hit a good shot or you'll hit a bad shot, and there's no police coming after you if you hit a bad one.
Final question for you, Jim. After your career was over as well, you actually got involved with a program that helps NFL athletes transition to normal life after football. Talk about what you do with that program and how you make a difference in these athletes' lives.
Well, we started a program through the Lions, and it's called our Pure Pride program. What it is set up to do, it actually came out of a program that started out of Rutgers post 9/11 for firefighters, for policemen. That program basically was set up as a call-in program. And what we did, we took this idea and said, let's turn it around and be an active outreach. So we can do it on multiple levels. One of the things we did was we partnered with the Henry Ford Health System. So if we are talking to a former player whom may be going through some issues, whether depression, addiction, or even suicidal, then we have ways we can plug them in for help. And it's concierge, so you're not going and sitting in a waiting room for an hour to see a doctor. It's good programs that are proven. Eric Heppel really was the one behind who birthed this program, if you will. But a lot of it is once you leave that game, now you're starting in what is called real life. So going from where you were as a former player to the real world is an adjustment for any guy because it's just a whole different realm. I'm not saying it's bad, but you've been in a place for so long that is so different than what everybody else experiences from going through school, going through college, and then going out and getting a job, and then you're working that most of the rest of your life. These guys now are missing anywhere from 5 to 8 to 10, 12 years or more. And now you've got to go back, at least my era did, you've got to go back and find something to do. The money in today's game is a little bit bigger, so hopefully you're not really having to pursue that. But I think it's kind of like military too. You know, you come out of the military and guys, it's just kind of a little bit of a loss of identity, if you will. And so you're trying to see how I fit in there. And you see some guys are very fortunate and they find an avenue that provides some of the things that football did as far as teamwork, camaraderie, and an opportunity to make money, and then some that doesn't. So then that's kind of a little bit of what I call the Cinderella effect. You have guys who work here for a little while, work there for a little while, trying to find the right shoe, if you will, which is that job or business that best suits them to be successful, not only for themselves, but for the company they work for. So ours is a lot in that regard, and also just kind of cultivating these guys to know what's going on with the Lions, and then providing that a little bit of that camaraderie too, because believe it or not, we do miss the guys we had in the locker room, and it's apparent every time we have an opportunity to get together is that there's stories that are told, obviously, and some are very colorful, but it's a very, very good time. And that was family, and it still is family.
Jim Arnold, 12 seasons as a punter in the NFL, including 8 for the Lions, also a 2-time All-Pro, and the winner of the Golden Toe Award in 1987. Jim, thank you very much again for joining us here.
You're so welcome, Noah. Thanks for reaching out, getting in touch with me. I've enjoyed it. Best of luck to you and in your future and everything you do as well.
I want to thank Jim Arnold for coming on again, the best punter in Lions history. Great conversation there. You know, that's why I tried to bring as many Lions alumni on as possible. You know, and I've told you guys about this before, about how I'm a really, really big Lions fan. And, you know, even though I didn't grow up watching these guys necessarily because they were a little bit before my time, it's really cool to just hear some of the history of the team and what they've done in their careers, how they enjoyed being a Detroit Lion, something that I've really enjoyed. And I'm working on getting other alumni from other, programs like Michigan State, among others. Maybe we'll get some Tigers and Pistons involved later. I know football season's kind of coming to an end, so I'm focusing a little bit more on basketball season right now, trying to get those guys. But let's squeeze out as many Lions alumni as we can right now before we start switching seasons. But I really, really enjoy it. And thank you again for the support. Be sure to check out any of the other content on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Got the Fan Report coming out every Monday. Also, the famous Doc and Jock podcast and the wrestling podcast that Adam and John do. They do a great job, and I really, really enjoy doing the podcast here with the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and let's hope for the Lions something happens. I know this season is over pretty much, but if they could just show me some sort of hope for next season, then I'll be happy. So thanks again, folks, for tuning in. Make sure to join us next week only on Open Mic Night.